I'm sorry.
All right, so just to let you guys know what we are about here, we are doing a live stream discussing the Count of Monte Cristo. We read it as a buddy read, and then we ended up watching it as well, which is a lot of fun to read the book and then watch the movie. Our original live stream where we watched the movie was a little boring because we couldn't actually make it play on the screen. So it was a lot of us just sitting there watching a movie. But hopefully this will be a whole lot more interesting and engaging. So I have the plot summary up, but I'll let you guys introduce yourselves, and then we'll hop right in.
Perfect. Go ahead.
I'm Kate.
I'm Tony.
And we're from an Erudite adventure.
Yeah. Not a whole lot.
Where did your channel name come from? I've been wanting to ask you guys that.
So erudite is a word that kind of revolves around intelligence
and scholarship and learning through reading type thing. And we were looking for a channel name that would not be specific to one single person, but could encompass as many people as we ever decide to bring on to this channel.
Right.
So we were looking for something that kind of fit, and that fit both of our personalities a little bit. And that's what we ended up on, was erudite, and we knew we wanted adventure because adventures are everything.
Originally, we were thinking about Esurient erudites, which is Esurient a word for hungry, and we thought that was fun, but we decided it would be a little bit too abstract, so we went with an erudite adventure.
Yeah.
And I know you guys are in Alaska, but how is the time difference? Like, I know you guys are in summer months, so
right now it's 3:00 for us. So that's part of why we've had so many issues getting this live stream actually going, is because of the time difference.
It would either be during our work day for you, or
if we didn't have a time for you to work, or for that it would work for you, it'd be during our work hours, and if we did it when we were off work, you'd be asleep. So we kind of had to. I mean, it's something we've dealt with a fair amount with, even with traveling, is you travel 4 hours to get to a place, or you travel 4 time zones to get to a place, and then you're completely shot 4 hours behind.
Oh yeah. When I came in, I did a mission trip there in Anchorage, and volunteered at the University of Alaska Anchorage, and kind of helped out with their college ministry, and it was cool. Like, you go from east coast of the United States all the way to Alaska, and it's 11 o'clock at night. It's still bright out. I went in July, and it was. I'm not sure how close you guys are to Anchorage, but it was
not super
cool
close.
Adventure.
Yeah. It's pretty cool, Alaska, because it's so big that every part of it is a little bit different. So we're about 360 miles north-ish of Anchorage.
Yeah.
So it's different weather-wise, just, not really that dramatically, but a little bit.
We're not on the ocean, so we don't have the wind and the humidity. It's classified as desert because of the amount of precipitation. So it's
kind of
just
middle of the state,
differences.
Right?
Yeah, interior. Yeah. But
all right. Well, go ahead. Sorry.
The thing I love the Alaska in the summer because it's bright all the time. You know, like you already mentioned, but I don't think summer in Alaska compares to winter in Alaska. It's when everything is completely covered in snow, and it's absolutely beautiful. Like, I think everybody needs to come during the summer, but then everybody else needs to come during the winter too, just to see how completely different it is. But it's amazing.
That's awesome.
All right, I'm done now.
I really want to bring the family eventually.
Yeah.
Because I came by myself. All right, so figured we kind of talked about this earlier. We're going to do spoilers. This book is kind of new. It's only written back in the 1800s. And so we're going to do spoilers. If you haven't read the book or seen the movie, I'm sorry. You may have to leave, but please stay anyway. I will go ahead and talk about some plot here. And then we'll jump into, I've got a couple banners that we're going to throw up on favorite character, favorite part of the book, time period in the book, ending, the setting, and which we thought better was the book of the movie. So Edmond Dantes was a 19-year-old first mate on a ship who, during his voyage, which we don't see this part, he comes home and the captain dies. On the way there, they stop at the island of Elba, which at the time is where Napoleon was during his exile. The first time he was defeated, and then he was exiled to the island of Elba. And then while he was there, he found a way to get back. This is kind of actual history. He found a way to get back, and he started the war all over again. And so when he got home, because the captain died, and he did such a good job of getting the ship home, he was promoted to captain. So he was waiting to become a captain to marry the love of his life. Her name was Mercedes. And so he goes and he's going to marry Mercedes, who he loves, but a couple people don't like him, don't like his success. He is seemingly very charismatic. Most people do like him as they meet him, but there are 3 people who do not like him. The first one being Fernand Mondego, who is in love with Dantes' fiancée Mercedes and covets their relationship. His neighbor Caderousse, who is just envious that Dante is so much luckier than him. He kind of is like the upstairs neighbor and kind of that snidey, kind of back-talking guy. He kind of regrets that he's mad at him, but that comes in later. And then the last guy is... where's it? I have his name here. Danglars.
Yes.
He is the financial executive of the ship. So basically, he's like the ship's accountant, from what I can tell. And so the captain was given a letter from Napoleon, I'm thinking, addressed to a man's father. And so he was supposed to deliver the letter. He asked Dantes to deliver the letter. Dantes did not know what was in the letter. And Danglars came up with an idea to draft a letter accusing Dantes of treason. There was some of that truth in it because the letter was from Napoleon to a sympathizer, but Dantes knew nothing about it and really didn't care either way. So he's arrested on the day of his wedding, and he is taken to a man named Vilfort. Vilfort sees the plot to frame Dantes and is going to set him free, but when he realizes that his father is the man that they were sending the letter to, the man Nortier is Vilfort's father, he's afraid that any knowledge of his father's treasonous activity will get him kicked out of being the public prosecutor. So he sends Dante to prison for life, and kind of buries him under a bunch of paperwork, basically, saying that he is an enemy of the state. He's the one that did all this. He's the one trying to get everybody. Basically, sends him to the infamous prison of Chateau d'If, where the most dangerous political prisoners are kept. He's there for 14 years before a man named Faria, who is a priest from Italy, digs under his prison cell and comes in, befriends him, teaches him literature, different languages, all kinds of amazing things he teaches him about, until he actually dies. When he dies, Dantes then gets in his burial shroud and is thrown into the sea. Let's see. He then finds the treasure that Faria knew about, which was of the really rich family. I can't remember exactly, but it was on the island of Monte Cristo. So he then disguises himself as an Italian priest, goes and meets Caderousse, who at that time, he used to be a tailor. Now he owns an inn, and the inn is not doing well. And offers to give him a diamond, like a very, very big diamond, to hear the story about what happened to Dantes. So he is playing himself. He's in disguise. I really liked his disguises in the book. Unfortunately, they didn't do that in the movie. But he has 3 disguises. He has Abbe Busoni, which is an Italian priest. And then he's also an Englishman named Thomas something. it's not listed here on this plot summary. But he basically saves the captain's family because the captain actually saved his father's life for a time. His father was dying of poverty. He was starving to death. And he saved his father. So he actually saved. He went and found the ship that he was initially on, which had been waylaid by pirates, and brought that ship back. It was a really cool story. It was like a good story. I like that one. That was one of my favorite parts of the book. And then he comes back and he meets the son of Fernard and Mercedes, who ended up getting married and had a son. He finds him in Italy. He has some connections in Italy with a notorious villain, and that villain captures the son of Mercedes and Fernard, and then uses that connection to get introduced into Paris society. You kind of had to be introduced back then. It was kind of I kind of looked at it a little bit. It's kind of an interesting way, and through that he ruins the lives of all of the people who betrayed him with a lot of money and a lot of it's a very convoluted plot, but he makes one man commit suicide. He drives another to political ruin. Another one he bankrupts, and the other one he has his friend kill him. Right, the Caderousse, his I can't remember exactly, like the son of Vilfort and Danglars' wife. So yeah, Danglars' wife and Vilfort have an affair and have a baby out of wedlock. His son is found, and that guy kills Caderousse. It's convoluted. It's cool though. Like everything ties into everything else. It's an interesting story, and he actually has, which I didn't mention yet, a Greek princess who is instrumental in the destruction of Fernard. Like it's nuts. And then he ends up falling in love with that lady, and then the son of the owner of the ship falls in love with Vilfort's actual daughter, like legitimate daughter, and she takes poison, but he ends up saving her life. And they fall in love and get married. It's an interesting book. It's a long book. It's a lot of fun. Let's jump into thoughts. If you guys have any thoughts, I'd love to hear them as well. So let's jump in with favorite character. I'll let you guys start.
Do you have yours right off the bat? Okay. I don't know. I did really like the Count, his character arc, and his especially when you bring in the disguises and all that side of things. I really liked his character arc, but I also liked the I can't think of his name, the son of Albert, yeah, the son of Fernand and Mercedes. I thought he was a good character too, in an interesting way to incorporate, especially we'll leave it with that. Keep going.
I liked Ide, however,
the Greek princess.
The Greek princess. That was interesting, although it was a little weird overall. But she was an interesting character to follow, and I liked when she told Albert her background and backstory. That was kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would probably say that Abby Faria is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And then most likely my second favorite would be the son of the ship owner.
Mm-hmm.
His plot was pretty cool. Now the Count's disguises, I think everybody likes the Count, but as a character, I think he spent too much time being angry, and he wanted to destroy everybody. Like he wanted to destroy Mercedes. He wanted to kill Albert. He wanted everybody destroyed. Like until Mercedes kind of asks him, like, please don't destroy my son. He was going to take them all out. Like anybody related, or like he just wanted complete revenge. He was completely consumed by revenge. So it was a little hard to root for him. But you knew he was probably going to get a lot of people in a lot of trouble. So, but yeah, the son, the ship owner's son, which I can't remember his name, and the Abbey Faria, I thought he was really cool. He very quickly picked up on the plot of what happened to Dantes. Like immediately he was told the story. He's like, these people were betraying you. This is what's going on. And then he regretted it with his good character, and it said, please don't go for revenge. Try to, take the money and set yourself up. I'm giving you enough money to be a good man. And Dantes goes, nah, I'm not gonna do
Yeah.
that.
I forgot about this, but Noirtier, the Vilfort's father, I liked him too. The last half of the book where he was actually in it.
I liked when the time where he was talking about what he had done, especially when he was talking about what he had done when he went back and killed that man. No mention of Morel. Yeah, Morel was the ship's captain, the ship owner. Morel was good. I like Morel. I mentioned him a little bit. He was kind of a side character because now one of the things that I hate about I just don't like is suicide, and the fact that Morel was going to kill himself. That whole part, I was like, please don't kill yourself. Please don't kill yourself. Please. I understand it was a different time back then. Like when you did, when you were shamed, it was like, it was easier just to die because then, that can be sent a different way. Yeah, actually meant the son. Yes. He was my, he was one of my two favorites. Yeah. I don't know if you've seen She Loves Me. It's a play we went and saw in New York, and it was done beautifully. We went and saw it on Broadway back before, when Broadway was still a thing. And one of the scenes is a guy's going to commit suicide because his wife's having an affair, and I was just like devastated. I was like, no, I was mad at the play because they were doing it. Like just some personal reasons, but I hate suicide. I feel like it's it can turn me off on a book for sure.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
All right, so we did favorite characters. What about favorite part or time period? It can be like his time in Paris, or just a certain time in Paris, or when they were in Italy, or whichever.
It's hard to come up with right off the bat because it's been so long now since we read the book, and also we watched the movie, and that confuses me on what actually happened and what was taken for the movie. I liked when he was in prison. That was when I was most engaged in the book still, so I'd probably say that when he was interacting with Faria, and probably that just because that's at the front of my mind, and I didn't like the ending, so.
I understand that. Not a big fan of the ending either.
I don't know. I like that section. That was where you saw him completely broken from. He thought he was going to be able to get out of the prison. He thought it was just a mistake that they'd put him in there, and it would be only a matter of time before they came to release him. All that stuff, going from a hopeful young man to just devastated, and then meeting Abbé Faria, or I don't know the
Abbé.
Other guy in the prison. I don't remember which name goes to which person anymore. And seeing how he was kind of rebuilt during that time. He had to learn some stuff, and anytime people are studying scholarship of any sort, that's weirdly interesting to me, because it's kind of boring most of the time in books, but for some reason it's really interesting to me. And so I did like that part while he was the 14 years that he was in prison, seeing his character arc through there. I also thought there was a lot of it that kind of missed and was a little bit confused about timeline wise, but I feel like I remember liking when he was in Italy, in Rome, I think was where it was at. And I feel like I really liked that section, but I don't remember for sure.
Like when he met Albert.
Yeah, and the whole it was kind of weird because Italian parties like that and everything are kind of weird when they're portrayed in stories. It's just different culture from America, so it's kind of weird for me to read that, and so that part was kind of weird. But the part where specifically like going into the catacombs and dealing with Luigi Vampa and everything, that part was really cool to me.
I like that part as well. I think my favorite part was all of the mythology he built around himself as Sinbad the Sailor. Like the time with Morel's family where he saved their finances, the time where he was on Monte Cristo, like having elaborate parties. He was giving that guy, I've still not Googled what that is that he was giving him. It was like some kind of drug or something. And he's like, it's the greatest thing ever. He's like, it's super expensive, but here, try it. You gotta try this. And then when he went and he saved Luigi Vampa, because with his swordsman skills, he was Sinbad the Sailor, and like the priest who is Albert's friend was like following along and like finding the mentions of Sinbad the Sailor through like time. I mean, it had to be a multiple amount of years when he was going through and just creating his own mythology about himself. I thought that was kind of cool that he like had an alter ego, and then he became the Count of Monte Cristo, but he was also Sinbad the Sailor, and all that interluding time. And then I enjoyed the way that the story, like not as much his time in Paris, but the way that he was finding certain things in Paris, like how the baby came about, how his relationship with is it Jacopo? Was that the guy that worked for him? He was a smuggler, and then he went to go kill Vilfort, and then he found the baby in the box. He dug up the baby, took the baby to his sister. His sister raised the baby, and then the baby ended up becoming, I can't remember the name that he had, but
so many names.
Like how all that was connected, and like it went down to the fact that like he actually went to Caderousse's house and was at Caderousse's house when Caderousse stole that man's money. He was at Caderousse's house when Caderousse had the diamond dealer come to him, and then he killed the diamond dealer to steal the diamond dealer's money, and that's why he went to prison. Like how everything was so connected. Like that was one of my favorite parts of the story, because he went through so many different channels to make, I imagine like a diagram where like all the spidery lines go out and then come back together. It's kind of what I imagine there. And there's a lot of words to make that happen, but it did come back together, and I thought that was pretty cool.
Any of the times that somebody else was telling their story, whether it was the Greek princess or Caderousse or any of those other people who had their specific part of the story to tell that somehow involved or furthered the plans of Monte Cristo. Any time that stuff happened and they were telling the stories, I really, really enjoyed hearing the stories from the other people's perspectives.
Yeah, the Greek princess's story was cool, how it really brought out how awful he actually was. So what did you guys think about the setting? The end of the Napoleonic Wars and kind of the rebuilding time of France when they were trying to not have a king anymore.
It was interesting. I wish I'd have done some research on that era before I read the book, so I could know where we were. I didn't really place it in history until we talked about it in the film, I think, when we watched the movie together. So I think having some context regarding the history around that area would have been helpful, and I would have enjoyed it more being able to plug in some of the information.
Yeah, I'm very similar. There's a lot about history that I just haven't put in the time to study and research into. And that's the Napoleonic Wars, and that time in France and everything is definitely one of those ones that I just don't know that well. But I enjoyed it. I think knowing because in some ways after a war, any place goes through some similar things that they have to deal with while trying to rebuild. And so knowing that from American history and stuff, I can kind of place that same information into a different type of war and the rebuilding stage from after that and see it. And so I could kind of understand it in that way, and that helped. But I definitely just didn't know Italy and France, or I guess, France in that time. So I enjoyed it, but it wasn't something that I could specifically know a whole lot about.
I because of the presidential live stream and the books that we're reading, I've kind of learned a lot more about the French Revolution and like the time frame and the time period. One of the things that I've learned because of reading the presidential biographies is that our revolution was deemed like an honorable revolution, and theirs was deemed as a bloody revolution because they were killing hundreds of people per day, beheading them with the guillotine. And then they were run by it's not called a federation, but there was a group of people who ran the government until Napoleon took over. Napoleon was like, no, I think I can do this better, and made himself the emperor. And I didn't realize they still idolize Napoleon in France. Like the Arc de Triomphe has like pictures of Napoleon surrounded by angels, and he's like wearing like a toga kind of thing, and he's like reaching his hand out to you, and like it was funny because we went to our anniversary trip. It was like our 10-year anniversary. Went to London for like 6 days, and then we did a trip to Paris for the day. Sorry, my kids are doing something upstairs. And in England, it's all like there's monuments to defeating Napoleon, and then in Paris, it's Napoleon is amazing. You should learn more about him. His grave is over there. It's commemorated in glass. I think his like body is under glass or something. And like there's a whole building for it. And then Arc de Triomphe is him, and he created some of the laws of government. He was very liberal. He was considered a liberal emperor. A lot of things that he brought forth, a lot of ideas that the French people feel very strongly about, and considered one of the greatest French people of all time to the French. And then the English are like, Napoleon sucked, we hate him. So It's kind of cool to see, the French wanted Napoleon for a long time, and it's kind of easy to see why they rose back up when he came back, because he was a man of the people. But the French nobility, which they eventually threw the nobility out around the time that the setting of the story, the nobility were thrown back out. It's kind of interesting. They actually said that they tore most of, right around the turn of the century, around the 1900s, they tore most of France down, moved everybody out of the city, and designed the city to look interesting because they wanted to let the people know that they didn't need a king anymore. That they could run their government without a king. And so it's around that time that all this was happening, like the political upheaval. And so it's interesting to see, like when Fernard claimed that he was a count when he really wasn't, that could have probably happened because of the political upheaval. And things like that I think is really interesting. And I've actually bought a couple French Revolution books, and books on Napoleon to kind of learn more about him, because he pretty much took over all of Europe at one point, other than UK, and was marching on Russia to go take over Russia when they said, all right, we'll burn Moscow and we'll run away. And then a lot of his soldiers rose to death. So like if if that hadn't happened, he probably would have taken over all of Europe.
Yeah.
He was a crazy guy, like really, really, really interesting. So anything around that time period is super interesting to learn about. So I thought the setting was really cool. All that long-winded talk that I did talking about setting, but as we move on to the ending, which I didn't really like, and you also mentioned you didn't really like, what was your problem with the ending?
I didn't like how, well, I never liked the Count of Monte Cristo's whole revenge thing. Everything was about revenge, and like you were saying earlier, he was just very bitter and angry, and that's not really something honorable or worth heroizing. It was an interesting story to follow, sure. And then it ended, and I didn't like all what happened with Mercedes because he was angry at her, and then he's like, well, she can just go live in the slums, that's okay, even though she's forgiven me, and everyone is just a dirtbag in the whole story. And then he hooks up with the Greek chick who's like 20 years younger than him, and that's a little weird too. But it was just all a little bit, you sit there and you finish and you scratch your head, you're like, that's how they're going to wrap it up? Okay. I mean, it's really cool seeing the converse at the very beginning of the story, seeing how Edmond he was so naive and so innocent and just a very nice person, versus like, this is my friend Fernand. He's like, oh, hi, you're my friend too. So, just seeing how he changed completely over the course of the story was really neat. An interesting character arc for sure. But it wasn't necessarily it was enjoyable, but it wasn't something that was super, I don't know what I'm trying to say. I know what I'm trying to say. I don't know how to put it into words. But yeah. It was, he wasn't actually exactly an honorable person, if that makes sense.
He was willing to let people die for his revenge.
Yeah.
It didn't bother him one tiny bit.
I don't know how I feel about the ending. I'm not feeling like it was the greatest ending ever, but I'm not feeling like I didn't like the ending. I thought it was fine. I thought it was, I didn't feel like it was unfitting for the characters, I guess. It seemed to fit where they were all at that time. I guess it kind of did seem a little bit fast because it was, 52 hours of revenge and then 3 hours of wrap up or an hour of wrap up or whatever it was. But it was just, it may have been a little bit fast, and it may have, I may have not have liked it for that, but I don't recall exactly what my feelings were at the time of finishing it now.
Relief.
Me.
That was a long one.
So I liked one part of the ending, and that was the fact that Valentin Vilfort, the daughter of the other Vilfort, what was his name? His name was, I don't know. He's the guy that had Dantes locked up. I was glad that she lived, and Morel, the son, that they got together. But he was about to commit suicide too. He was like, "Oh, she's dead. I've got nothing to live for." I'm glad that they were able to save her life, and that worked out. That was the one part of the ending I did like. I didn't like the way that the ending ended with Albert. I mean, he did go into join the French Foreign Legion, and that was kind of cool that he's like, I'm going to make a name for myself by myself, and that he went that way. I think even though the movie changed the ending quite a bit, like a lot, making Albert actually the Count of Monte Cristo's son, completely removing the Greek princess, and actually having them end up together. I think that's an ending that a lot of more people would be happy with.
I think that's kind of the expected ending, though.
Yeah, that's not the ending we got in the book. We got the book, he was going to just go off on his own, and then was convinced by the Greek princess, who thought of him as a father, that she loved him and was willing to be with him. I did like that. And then it felt like we did all this work to get to this point, and then he's like, "We're gonna end it. It's good. I think that's it. I'm done." So I had a harder time with the ending, just how everything ended up. The way he treated Mercedes. I think not ending up with Mercedes was a good way to end it if he kind of did some personal reflection, but it was more of like, I just don't think I'm a good person. Nobody can love me. And the princess is like, "Oh, I love you." Okay, well, that's fine. Then we'll go and be married.
Right.
So it was, I don't know. I didn't find it. And I didn't think there was a good ending with the, maybe I'm wrong. The son of Vilfort, who was the product of his affair. I can't remember what happened to him, but I don't remember liking what happened to him. I thought he should get in trouble, or he should confront his father about who he really was, and be like, "Hey, you're my actual father." When he thought that the Count of Monte Cristo was his father, and he was going to rob him, and that all ended up working badly for Caderousse.
Yeah, I don't remember what happened to him either.
I'm
I don't even remember what his name was now. I should. As soon as I hear it, I'll know it.
I can
have a reference here. I'm trying to find it. Is it-
Benedito. That was his name.
Bertuccio. No, Bertuccio was the guy who adopted him. Kind of, sort of. Okay, Benedetto. Yeah, you're right. Benedetto. Yeah. It doesn't say how he ends up. Oh, excuse me. Sorry.
I almost
all right.
wonder if there was a couple of random storylines that they kind of just dropped and brushed under the rug and forgot about. I don't think there was, but I wonder. I wonder now, looking back and not being able to remember specifics about certain people, what ended up happening to them.
Sorry, Nico. You
Hashish jelly.
gotta tell me what that means.
I think that's the drug that he was like, "Oh, you have to try this."
Oh, yeah. I wonder. Hashish I've always equated to marijuana, so I wonder if he had like some kind of edible marijuana, and that's what he was really enjoying and letting people taste.
Maybe.
Yeah, it was crazy. He was like really wanting you to try his hashish jelly, and it was super expensive. And he was like, "Dude, you got to try my super expensive hashish jelly that I've got." I thought that was hilarious. I really enjoyed that part. All right. So, final question. It is, we're going to hide this real quick and then add this. What was better, the book or the movie?
The book was better because it had more complexity, and the story arc was more satisfying because it didn't leave out so many things like the movie did. But we talked about how the ending of the movie was more what a general public would have liked. And I still think that that's the case, but I don't necessarily like the movie more.
I agree.
Yeah. The only thing I'd say is I have not read enough French literature, which is what the Count of Monte Cristo would be, to know whether this is the way they ended, Dumas ended that story, is more common in French literature than it is in American literature. Because in American, it would always be the guy ends up or Monte Cristo ends up with Mercedes. That's how they write it as American. And so maybe as American reading it, my brain tells me, "Oh, this is how it should be." Whereas if you were French reading it, you'd say, "Oh, this is how it should be." I don't know that because I haven't done enough research into that and haven't read enough books. But it makes me wonder about that.
I wonder if it was intended in the way it was written as a tragedy. I know Greek tragedies were more of a no matter what happens, the ending's never going to be good. And so I wonder if that's where he was, Dumas was going with it. But yeah, you're very much right. That's the ending that an American would look for. The guy gets the girl. He wins the sword fight and he gets the girl. That was good. But man, the fact that they didn't do the disguises really upset me. The movie would have been great if it should have been a miniseries, most likely. You could have told the story and had the disguises, really fleshed out the character. Because I mean, he was in prison for like 20 minutes. He had to, find his fortune. They added a character who they kind of combined a couple characters to make what's Luis Guzman, the kind of funny character. He was Bertuccio and somebody else. What the guy that he worked with on the ship? What was the he was like a I don't know. They kind of combined two characters to make him, and then added a bunch of funny scenes, which were funny, to kind of lighten it up. It would be a very dry tale if you went through just the suspense of what was going on. I think I prefer the book over the movie, but if I had only seen the movie, I would really, really like it, I think.
Yeah. It works well on its own.
So what do you guys have coming up next? What can we promote for your channel?
We're bad at planning ahead. Let's see. Well, let me see if I can find the schedule real quick. In December, and then give me just a second. I'll find it. If you have something, go for it.
I'm excited for a couple of individual books that I'm going to be reading. I got a new release that I'm excited for, but I haven't actually started on it. I'm trying to get through a story. I started Something Wicked This Way Comes by Ray Bradbury a while ago, and it's been on the back burner for a while. So I'm trying to finish that one up so I can actually say, hey, I've completed this book.
Okay. I've wanted to read that for quite a while.
It's the prose and the writing style is very almost poetic, very Ray Bradbury, and that's really cool. But I think that the plot is a little bit harder to pull out because of that. It's such flowery prose, and I enjoy it, especially for flowery prose, which isn't something I like in general. But I do like this. It just takes a while to get through, and it's hard because you can't just read one little section. You have to read like the whole chapter. Otherwise, you're going to be really confused, and finding the time to read whole chapter is weird.
Okay, so the things that I've got coming up, I've got quite a bit. But in December, I'll be reading The Hobbit again with David Wiley, and you, if you want to join. I know you mentioned it, or I mentioned it too. And then I think January through June, David is trying to read through the Lord of the Rings as well. So he'll be reading it at a snail pace, and I'll be hopefully reading it in January, February, March, because it's one of those series that I would like to start reading every year, once a year. December is the first, I think, the first time I read it, I read The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, and then The Hobbit again, all in December. And so December is kind of my month for reading The Hobbit. From then on, The Lord of the Rings, I'll get to whenever I end up, but I like to try and having them back to back. Other things that I've got coming up, I'm going to start reading some more King Arthur stuff. So this month, if I can, I'm going to try and read, what's it called? The Once a Future King. And then sometime soon here, if I can find a copy, I'll read the La Morte d'Arthur. I don't think I have a copy of that one, but.
You just read Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, right?
Yes. Yeah. So those are the things that I've got right off the bat that I'm trying to set in stone to get read and to learn about and stuff. So, yeah.
Well, I definitely want. Hobbit is my favorite Tolkien book so far, but I just picked up the Silmarillion. In my latest book haul, I kind of talked about it. I've been wanting to read it forever. I didn't love Lord of the Rings. Two Towers I did really love. The Fellowship of the Ring I was okay with, and then I kind of got a little bored with the third book, unfortunately. Return of the King. So I really want to read it all. I really want to get through. I've also got The Children of Húrin, and I think his translation of Beowulf. So I'd love to get all those read. So I will definitely join for that. I'm currently doing the presidential biography read along. The next live stream is on Thursday at 9 p.m. 9 p.m. And we're talking about James Madison. James Madison was super influential in the creation of the U.S. Constitution. He pushed hard for the Bill of Rights and religious liberty. At the end of his life, was an abolitionist, but still owned slaves. It was kind of he felt like if he freed his slaves, they would be recaptured, and he would actually be doing them worse. So he felt like if he kept them in his family, they would be better taken care of. But he pushed hard for the recolonization of slaves back in Africa, in Liberia, is where they were kind of thinking. That was called the Society of American Colonization, I think is what that was called. But yeah, he wanted to free the slaves and then send them back to Africa because he felt like they would not be given a fair shake in the United States. Kind of an interesting take on it. And then going to start Monroe, which I was telling you before we got started that I knew Madison, Monroe were 4 and 5, but I had no idea what order they were in. Like sometimes I would say Monroe was 4, sometimes I'd say Madison was 5, and so now I have a better picture of who Madison was. Kind of learned a little bit more about him in the Hamilton play, which they really combined a lot of characters. They made Aaron Burr so important to that story when he was really not that important other than the end of the story. And it was just really, really interesting. And so learning more about them has been a lot of fun. So if you want to join for that, I would love to have everybody join that. And then I am currently working on a couple read-alongs with the big one coming up is the Jurassic Park read-along starting next month, with Danny from Spinelli Speaks is kind of hosting that, and then I am the Discord partner. So we're going to do all the Discord talk on my channel. They're going to do a bunch of stuff on Voxer. We're going to do Jurassic Park, a couple live streams for that, and then The Lost World over, I think, 2.5 months. So if you want to join that, that's going to be fun too.
That'd be fun. I still haven't read those ones. I'd like to.
Yeah, it's going to be.
We'll
cool.
See. I've got a lot of books that I'd like to try and get to.
Yeah, that will start middle or the announcement video is going to be August 14th. So I'll share that on my Discord so everybody can kind of see when that's going to start up. But I'm pretty sure that we're going to start in September, do a halfway read through the book live stream, and then an end of the book live stream, and then a halfway through Lost World live stream, and then a final live stream. So should be fun. Nico did mention that the Penguin Classic version is a very good book that has extensive annotations and a lot of background to the story that might have been hard to translate for the Count of Monte Cristo. So that's really cool if you want to check that out. The Penguin Classics version, which they are very beautiful anyway. They got the black spines. I like that. He added this as well before we sign off. Monte Cristo was betrayed and so then decided to become the villain to get his revenge on those who wronged him. Despite his extensive planning, things still fall apart at the end, and he finally... Oh, he didn't finish.
Probably ran out of word count.
Yeah. When he finishes up, we'll hop in there. And that's kind of an interesting way that the story was told. Revenge doesn't pay. I don't think he ended up any better. He could have taken the money and done so much good with it, but instead tried to destroy people's lives. Here we go. He finished up the comment. And then he realizes that maybe a happy ending is possible without having to devote himself to revenge anymore. Definitely not your happy ending, but he enjoyed it, which I agree. I very much enjoyed the book. The ending was kind of... Maybe it was just the fact the ending's not something that I normally would expect. See, Nico thinks it's his all-time favorite novel, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And I have heard from more than one person that it is their favorite book. And it is... Moby Dick is Moby Dick or Treasure Island are probably my favorite classics.
Wow.
But I think I have a type. I think I like pirate books. Like I'm currently reading Robin Hobb's Live Ship Trader series and just loving it. I think nautical fun is definitely on my wheelhouse. And this has enough nautical fun. That's probably why I like the Sinbad the Sailor parts,
Yeah.
where he's doing nautical things. Um, and and it's nice to see a character who, even though he's supposed to win, he doesn't. Like that's always a good subversion of what you think's going to happen. It's not. Sometimes books get boring because you know that the good guy is going to win at the end of the book, and to know that sometimes the good guy doesn't always win. It doesn't work out for him like you think it's going to work out for him. Can be an interesting way to tell a story.
Yeah. Yep. Before
Anything
we go,
else you guys
is
wanna
there
go?
anything? Is there anything that any of us found confusing that maybe somebody else can explain?
There's still parts of the story I don't understand that I didn't get. That was that I don't think that classics that I have to force myself to get through are not things that I enjoy. So I read A Tale of Two Cities, which is set during the French Revolution. I loved A Tale of Two Cities, but I read it for school, and I had a study guide that I read along with it. So it was explaining things, and I was doing, typical high school study guide work. And so that really broke the story down, and I was able to understand it with the complexities and the things that were the little golden threads within the story. So I like The Tale of Two Cities because they took a complex story and they broke it down. And I didn't have that with The Count of Monte Cristo. I didn't have that additional resource, and I was trying to get through it. I was trying to push through it so I could read something else, because it was, that book for so long. One book for so long does wear me out. So there was parts of it where I think I was just, it was going in one ear and not the other. So.
I didn't have anything I didn't understand. The one thing that was a little tough is sometimes it meandered through a couple different places, and you're like, well, why are we talking? And it all comes together at the end.
Right.
But during the reading of it, I was like, why are we hanging out with this guy for like 200 pages? And so that was interesting. There was a lot of kind of how some people describe it, like there's a lot of telling, not showing. Which I've heard is really hard for some people to digest. It didn't bother me as much, but and then some of the names, you'd be talking about somebody and I'd go, who's that again? So I actually went and watched a couple of YouTube breakdowns of the book, because I really wanted to figure out like what they were talking about. Just like which character was and how they tied into the story, and but
after I finished the book, I was talking to one of my friends about it who likes it, and she sent me the copy of the book she has a breakdown in the back of it with all the names and who they were and what other names they went by. And she sent that to me, and that was super helpful to read through and be like, oh, is this person, and especially since I listened to it on audiobook, so I didn't actually have the visual what the name looked like.
The only thing that I was unsure, like I didn't catch reading it even after I finished it, was Vilfort's father, being Vilfort's father, and as well as being the person that they were delivering the letter to. I didn't catch any of that. I don't remember when I learned that, but as soon as I did, I was like, oh, now it all makes sense. Like the last piece of the puzzle fell into place, and the story overall, everything made perfect sense. So yeah, I think that was the only thing that I had. I mean, there's probably a couple other ones, but I don't know, what is it, 3 months now since we read it?
Yeah, back in May, I believe we finished it in May. The story's definitely interesting. It gave me a want to read the Three Musketeers. I've actually picked a couple of those up. I'd like to see that.
I think I'm planning on reading, and we haven't for sure planned this yet, but I think David Wiley and I are planning on reading Three Musketeers and the rest of the books in that series, starting sometime January, sometime in around there. So if you want to, I don't know, we haven't planned it for sure. I just mentioned it to him, so maybe that's something we should do.
I will definitely put that on my radar because I would like to read them. I watched the Three Musketeers. It was like mid to late '90s. The movie, and loved that. So I'll probably like the book too.
Yeah, no, I was in a Three Musketeers stage production, and that was so much fun. It didn't follow the story that I know, but it was so much fun, and it made me want to read the book, and then I read Count of Monte Cristo and made me want to read the book even more. So I'm very ready to read it.
So Nico said that the book, 1,000 times the book. He didn't care for the movie. That was, so much was left out, and then things were changed. We talked about that. I think it was changed because it was an American director for an American audience, and that's the expectation of American audiences. And man, no disguises. Come on, man.
Yeah. Well, the disguises in the Telegraph thing where he's like, no, I'll pay you some money. You just change the arms a little bit, and
we didn't even mention the Telegraph guy.
That part was fun. I don't know. I loved that part. That was hilarious. He's just like, yeah, I'm just going to ruin your life. Just to see what happens.
He bought him a house, so that he would, like, to send one telegraph, he bought him a whole house. He's like, look, I'll buy you a house. Just send this telegraph. Miko said he hasn't seen the movie in years. So I will end it here. We're coming in almost on an hour. This was a lot of fun. We'll have to do this again.
Yeah.
So thank you guys so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.